Welcome to Inside Politics. I'm Chris Farco of the Calgary Herald, joined by Don Braid. Don, it's been a topsy-turvy year in the world of Alberta politics, and today was one of those days where the NDP cabinet met at McDougall Centre, where you just realized how much has changed in the past 12 months. What were your impressions of Rachel Notleys' first cabinet ministers meeting in the city of Calgary at McDougall Centre?
Well, first of all, it seemed weird for somebody with people with our experience. Very weird. First of all, she'd never been there before, and all of a sudden she's got this office. You get this new job, and you've got this great office in Edmonton, and then you find out you got another one in Calgary. And she'd never been there, and most of the cabinet ministers hadn't been there for any reason either. So it was very odd to see coming into the building that has been the home of the elite. Let's face it, those Christmas parties the PCs used to have were festivals for the elite. You had to be invited, you had to be donors and all that. And now it's all changed. The whole paradigm is on its head, and we're still figuring it out.
There is a picture on the entrance of McDougall Centre where you walk in, where they've got the Lieutenant Governor and the Queen, and there's an empty space where the Tory Premier's pictures have sat for the last 44 years. That's now vacant. If anything says things have changed, that was the moment for me.
Sure, they aren't putting another Tory Premier in that we've forgotten about.
Nothing that we saw.
That's true. Yeah.
Let's talk about the cabinet meeting and Rachel Notley's news conference. One of the big issues, obviously, that she first has to deal with is the financial situation. She said that maybe the finances are not as good or as rosy as maybe the Tories had portrayed in the last budget. What did you make of those comments?
Well, she was asked if the books were honest, and she didn't say no. She said they've discovered some surprises, some things they weren't expecting, and it didn't sound like they were good surprises either. She said there were other things that were explicable. That is, conditions have changed, and that's why the numbers have changed.
Right.
But I think she kind of left open the question of whether they're going to go after the PCs on what they left behind at some point.
And we already saw Rick McIver, the Tory leader, saying it's just standard fare for the new government to always blame the old government. So I guess we know what the PC's position is going to be. But the second issue may be a little more problematic for the Tories, and that is the royalty review. They've got polls which say Albertans like the fact that they're going to review royalty rates, but they've got an oil patch which is already sending off some signals that they're not happy with it.
Well, Canadian Natural Resources, in their decision to cancel a meeting of investors today, just when the Premier is coming to town for the first time, despite the fact that Ms. Notley said that she'd already spoken to Murray Edwards, it certainly seems like, if they don't mean it as a symbol, nobody can be surprised that they're taking it as a symbol of resistance and of raising an alarm. So we'll see where that goes. You get the feeling that the debate is starting to get a little sharper over this. Mm-hmm. The energy minister said on the way in that there will be a review within 6 months. But I can tell you, I don't see any sign whatever that the NDP is going to back down on that.
Interesting comment from the Premier where she said, in response to the questions on why Canadian Natural Resources was raising questions about, where these projects that they've got planned for the future are going to move ahead or not with the royalties. And she said, look, this is not just an economic debate. This is a political debate that we're entering. And I guess that's the explanation for what we've seen here in the last few days.
Well, Brian Mason said during the campaign, he said, we're doing this well because he told me this. He said, we read the PC's own polls. They did a poll and it showed 60% want higher royalties. They ignored it or argued against it, and we accepted it. They always did, of course. It wasn't new. But yeah, it is political, and by Notley's really saying when she says it's a political debate to the oil patch, you're not the only participant in this debate. That's what she's saying.
Okay, the other order of business is education. And the Premier said that one of the very first announcements we're going to hear about is with regards to education and likely has to do with funding for school boards. Explain to me why this is an issue.
Well, the school boards have got to know, because they've got a plan for the fall, they've got to know if they can hire these teachers that they'll need to cover off 12,000 new students. That was the big issue during the campaign. Now, they won't be submitting their supplementary estimates to the House until sometime in the second week of June, 15th or later. So I'm thinking they might think that school boards need to know now what the numbers are going to be, so they can actually work from what they know they're going to get.
And the good news for the school boards here is that unlike the Tory budget in spring that gave them no additional money for new students who are coming into the school system, the NDP will give them additional money, which means more teachers. So it's good news that the school boards are waiting for here.
Well, I think obviously it is. And whether it's mixed in also with some news about construction of school, because she said education, but we weren't quite clear on whether she was talking about both education and schools. We'll find out.
Well, I guess how they pay for it is a question for another day. But Don, Thanks for your time today.
Thanks.